Let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
Celebrities do not make a difference whatsoever on who people vote for. And so then what am I doing? I don't want to start turning people off to films and to art that could change consciousness or change the world.
Okay, it's a little deep, but that's true. That's Jennifer Lawrence. She's not going to get the political thing anymore. The business of entertainment. Is Hollywood learning to stay away from politics? Plus, the real reason perhaps why Jimmy Kimmel is such a Trump hater.
Number 2.
Why do you want to create? Look, obviously, you have a Democratic establishment. I ran for president against the Democratic establishment. And of course, there's a division within the Democratic Party. There's no secret to anybody here.
The aftermath of the off-year election has every analyst intrigued. It should be a time for Democrats to celebrate, but instead, you have an undeniable divide between the far left and the center left. I'm not sure if anyone's equipped to heal it.
Number 1.
I understand that not all of my Democratic colleagues are satisfied with this agreement, but waiting another week or another month wouldn't deliver a better outcome. It would only mean more harm for families in New Hampshire and all across the country.
Beginning of the end of the longest shutdown in American history, the damage felt in our economy and across the country was too much for just enough Democrats in the Senate to end the shutdown. But the left is hardly all on board. And Lawrence, as we look at the shutdown and who finally voted with the others, of course, Rand Paul jumped out because he doesn't want to be relevant. He just wants to be ideological. The minority whip, Dick Durbin, Senator Maggie Hassan, Tim Kaine, Angus Keene, Jean Shaheen, Catherine Cortez Masto, Jackie Rosen, and John Fetterman. That will get to 60 in the test vote. I'm wondering if anyone could break from pressure, but right now, that'll open up the government.
Most of them are retiring or not up for re-election or are in the states that Trump won. So that tells you a lot. I think the most shocking one, and I said this morning on Fox and Friends, was Dick Durbin. He's the vote counter. How do you lose the vote counter? And I think that just shows you that deep down, they know this is the right thing, but they're afraid of the base. And if you have a leader that's not afraid of the base because they don't have an election to run anymore, you do the right thing.
But this is the exactly what Senator Thune said. Open up the government and we'll negotiate on health care. But as I brought up to Senator Shaheen, maybe we'll bring that back, is the only reason you have to negotiate on health care is because Obamacare is not working. And her answer is, well, in New Hampshire it's working. Well, the rest of the country it's not working. What are you talking about?
It's such a small state.
I'll take your word for it, but I don't know about New Hampshire. But it's not working. If it wasn't working, you wouldn't need these subsidies.
That's right. And we got to go back to part of this debate is what took place during the pandemic. There was a surge of resources. You had a health pandemic. And now they want the same funding levels as if it's COVID. And that's just not going to happen at all. There's a reasonable way to do this. But, Brian, at the end of the day, okay, they did this over a handshake. That doesn't mean they're going to resolve health care. Right. I'm sorry. That doesn't mean that there's going to be an Obama-light bill that fixes health care. And I'm not sure the Republicans have a plan that can work as well. When government is involved in health care, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't think, after being burned in the first term, the president was not looking to redo health care. He said, Obamacare is unmovable, let it happen. So then he said, saved it a couple of times in the first term. Joe Biden just flooded it with cash and then opened it up to more. And these governors, little by little, started giving in.
That's right.
And taking the subsidies. What happens? It's like crack. The minute those subsidies come in, okay, you can do it, and everyone thinks you're a hero. After a few years, people go, no, the subsidies are going to stop. So it's up to the state to now supplement, and the state goes, I need some help. In comes Joe Biden. I'll help you out. And then we have people eligible that are 400% above the poverty line. That's not what it was intended for.
I believe that Republicans should not take the Democrats' bait and make the next election about health care. I'm sorry. I think the last election was very clear. It's about affordability. And the president has to, every day until the midterms, talk about that, the success of the administration, bringing prices down. That's what it's going to be about. If people are not living paycheck to paycheck and feel some type of relief when they go to the gas station, the grocery store, the Republicans will win the midterms. If they don't, then it's going to be in the Dems' hands.
So I saw Tim Kaine kind of thrash this up last Sunday with Shannon Bream when he said, if they were going to take this up for sure, that would be okay, but I don't trust the president to take this up for sure. And I thought, wait.
Right.
So I'm like, how could you just guarantee that it would be him? Well, then a week later, he signed off on the word of John Thune that they're going to put this to a vote. Cut 7 is Tim Kaine, how he got to yes.
I've said what I need in Virginia, with 320,000 federal employees who live in households that probably encompass nearly 650 or 700,000 residents in my state, I need a moratorium on mischief. My Virginians have been suffering under this administration. The shutdown started on January 20. I need a moratorium on the punishing of the federal workforce. That's what I need. And so I joined this group to make sure that we could get important protections for federal employees. And what we have in this bill is the restoration of all the furloughed employees and a guarantee of their back pay, the restoration of all RIFT employees who got RIFT after October 1 with all of their back pay, and a guarantee of no RIFs going forward.
Yeah, but this was because of you guys. Part of the reason why they were furloughed is because you shut the government down. So you're asking for a guarantee on something that you caused. So I'm not understanding the calculation on that. I think what's really happening, Brian, is he's starting to hear from the voters. Like, that's Washington, D.C. All those folks live in Virginia or Maryland, and he's feeling the heat over there. Just say that.
Yeah, it is. A couple of things. I mean, this is a win for Republicans, but to me, and you may feel differently because I'm sure by the time we get off the air, there'll be all these Republicans taking a bow, we won. I just don't think with all the pain of the flying around and the SNAP payments, there's no winners. And that's just it. You know, obviously the Democrats caved on this. Right. There's just no way. But I am not for dancing in the end zone.
Yeah, and I also just think this whole debate was juvenile. Yeah. Because we're back. I mean, what improved from the over 40 days that we were in the shutdown? What improved? What happened? What moved on that? We just got more headache. They're saying that because they held back so long that the travel during the holidays is still going to be impacted. I don't consider that a win.
No, I know. It's and by the way, the airlines, you know, while everyone's inconvenienced, the airlines are losing a ton of money.
Right.
They did nothing to deserve this.
No.
And the pandemic, they were destroyed.
Right.
So they did nothing. And then they got the problem with the air traffic controllers not getting paid. And now they're going to get hit with the surge of cash. That's fine, but it's got to get to them relatively quickly.
That's right.
Hopefully they're pre-thought about this. But this is the rift within the Democratic Party, which we saw it right now. I mean, we saw Abigail Spanberger. Here's what she said is, the win that you guys got in the off-year elections, is that making Democrats dig in? Cut 14.
Some in your party look at your election on Tuesday and the win in New Jersey and say that is permission to hold the line in Congress and refuse to fund the government or fold on the shutdown. Should congressional Democrats view your victory that way?
Absolutely not. Our victory was a victory that was based on a campaign that was addressing concerns related to costs and chaos.
And she wanted to say, she said, open up the government. And I thought, I wonder how that's going to go, because she's still a congressperson.
Yes. But, Brian, she's in a minority. I was watching the other channels, and I'm watching my feed as this is happening on social media. All of the other channels, all their pundits, all the Democrats that are elected were enraged last night. They verbatim were saying that because they won these races in New Jersey and Virginia, that gave them even more of a reason to double down. Now, they have no control of any part of government. How you think you have a mandate to be able to get something passed for health care? I don't understand it. That's not how the legislative process goes. But they believe that the people are with them. No matter how many people they hurt in the process, people not getting paid, not getting food stamps, not getting their health care taken care of, they didn't care. It's about winning the next election.
So I want to talk about, before you go, let's do one long segment. I want to talk about politics. And do you think this is politics and Hollywood? Do you think the trend that we're seeing is a new trend in Hollywood where they're like, where the fever broke on Trump hatred? Robert De Niro will never be broke. Bruce Springsteen, it'll never break. But for the Baldwins will never break. But for others who looking at this and want a promising career, they feel differently. And I want you to hear what Billy Bob Thornton told Joe Rogan. You know, he's a star of Landman. He's a very accomplished actor. I don't know anybody who doesn't think he's a great actor, but I have no idea what he's like as a person. Cut 35.
First of all, unless you have really studied stuff and really know about a subject fully, who the hell would want to listen to an actor or a musician talk about politics? You know what I mean? It's like Are we supposed to follow this? I mean, if we are, what if they lead you down the wrong road?
I'm so glad he makes that point, because I feel like when we make that point, we sound elitist. And it's one, I have most of my friend group, they're lefties.
Yeah.
And they're very smart people in their own profession. But they comment on politics of the day, and I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not happening. These are not the facts on the thing. And it's so nauseating.
Because they write it on Instagram.
And I go, exactly. And it's like you're getting this feeling. I'm like, you're a lawyer, you're a great doctor and all that, but you're speaking on something that you haven't engulfed yourself into to see how things are done. And he's exactly right. I think the second thing is, I don't think Hollywood is becoming less liberal. I think they realized the old Jordan saying that Republicans buy sneakers too. And they're realizing that they're losing money as a result of just being so progressive. So you can go vote, you can go support, you can even go to a campaign event. But going on your social media, bashing people on the right, bashing the candidate on the right is not going to serve you well.
So look at Clooney and Rob Reiner. They're never going to change. They're militant right.
Right.
Although Clooney comes off a little level-headed, Rob Reiner's like screaming at you. So I don't know what he plans on doing, how that affects him. The people say, oh, who directed that? I won't go to that. I don't think that happens too much. But George Clooney, I look at it, I mean, somebody, he might as well be a politician.
Right.
That's how involved he is.
I think he feels the heat a little bit, but I don't think he cares. I think you get to certain
he's got so much money.
Exactly. You get to a certain level where you're just that household name and people don't care. But there are some people, you start to lose a part of your market. 50% of your people are on the right, 50% on the left. I will say, at least George Clooney, although he's wrong, at least he's not nasty.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of them are really nasty, and those people I just won't support.
Yeah, and by the way, he's probably so well-read. He can go deep on policy.
Right,
I think that's a little bit
and
different.
And his wife is involved as well.
Yeah, yes.
Right.
But that's she's Palestinian.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I don't know if she's Palestinian, but she is pro-Palestinian
Anti-Israel, very pro
authority. Here is Jennifer Lawrence, which she said last week to the New York Times, cut 37.
Celebrities do not make a difference whatsoever on who people vote for. And so then what am I doing? I don't want to start turning people off to films and to art that could change consciousness or change the world because they don't like my political opinions.
That is smart.
It's smart, but it's also, Brian, nothing new in the sense of she should have known this. That tells me there were some consequences that happened in this last election. Everybody loves J-Law because she's a really great actress, really great actor. She had no business getting involved into politics, and I think she's starting to see that. There's a way to correct this. You don't have to get involved at all. You don't have to get involved. You can vote for whoever you want to vote for, but we don't have to know about your choices.
Yeah, I think that she said, I grew up in Kentucky, and almost everybody's to the right. So I go out to Hollywood and I'm on my left. So she was getting some backlash. So real quick, Jimmy Kimmel's wife, who's a writer on the show, might be the impetus why Jimmy Kimmel would probably always be liberal, but maybe not this crazed. Her name is Molly McInerney. And she said on YouTube, it hurts me so much because of the personal relationships I now have where my husband is out there fighting for this man. And to me, fighting this man, meaning Trump. And for me, voting for Trump is them not voting for my husband and me and our family. And I unfortunately have kind of lost relationships with people in my family because of it. And it's really hard for me because I grew up believing in these Christian ideals of taking care of the sick and taking care of the poor. And I don't see that happening with the Republican Party. So it's, I feel like I'm kind of in a constant conflict and I'm angry all the time, which isn't healthy. But I personalize everything now. When I see these terrible stories every day, I'm immediately mad at certain aunts and uncles and cousins who put Trump in power. That's what he gets when he goes home.
I have never heard the clinical diagnostic for TDS. And she just
did it.
She just did it right there. Why are they so angry? I mean, when I leave, I'm upset about Mandami being the mayor, but I'm not losing sleep. I'm not full of rage. I do things. When I see my liberal friends, I'm disappointed that they would support this guy, but I'm not enraged. These people allow politics to just capture their entire life. And by the way, why is she the victim here? Her husband, and of course, you educated me on this, she's doing some of the writing, not only attacks Trump, but he makes fun of the voters as well. When we get on air, we talk about the politicians. We don't go after their people.
So one thing I think he said famously, said, I was told by ABC, to try to broaden it out, go easier. And I say good riddance to anybody who doesn't want to watch. And then, in fact, forget the good, just riddance.
Right.
So I go, wow. He's telling you,
100%.
jump in the lake if you don't like it.
And how did that go for him?
Right.
And then they were
It's a 1-8.
Right. When they had the little boycott and they took him off of air and he surged and he got back on air, they were so excited about his one-day ratings. And now the ratings have cratered once again because the content hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. He's not trying to go to the middle at all. And he's not a great storyteller at all.
Right. Trump president said, no talent, but I think he's good. I liked him when he was on Fox Sports, and I remember in the beginning of his show, I felt bad because I thought he was going to get canceled, and I kind of knew him, and then I don't know what happened.
You know who I really enjoy and our viewpoints of it? Fallon. Fallon's cool. I really like Fallon.
Right. Can't really ask a question, but I know what you mean.
Right.
Lawrence, thanks so much, man. Back in a moment.
Tonight, 8 Democrats voted with the Republicans to allow them to go forward on this continuing resolution. And to my mind, this was a very, very bad vote. We got a lot of work to do, but to be honest with you, tonight was not a good night.
Bernie Sanders upset the shutdown is over. Why? Not enough suffering for no reason at all? And in case you don't know, they had a test vote last night. They'll have 60 votes to have a continuing resolution through January 30th, it looks like, unless something breaks, and put our government workers back to work and start funding all these programs. Senator Markwayne Mullin joins us now. Senator, I haven't seen you anywhere. What is your response from what that test vote revealed yesterday?
Did you say you haven't seen me anywhere?
No. I mean, I haven't seen your comments on television yet. That's why I'm thrilled that you joined us.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Well, we knew this was going to happen. We had 8 of the 13 that had agreed to vote with us last week, so we should have already had the government reopened.
What do you mean? What do you mean? They told you verbally they would?
We had 13 that agreed to vote with us after Tuesday's election. They wanted to get through the Tuesday election, Brian, because they didn't want their base not to turn out. So we had 13 agreed with us. I had been working with these individuals since before the shutdown happened. They wanted to get past the No Kings rally. After the No Kings rally, they said they couldn't because their neck would be in a guillotine, and then they said, well, they couldn't because they're afraid their base won't turn out. And Chuck Schumer had agreed to quote, take off the handcuffs if they would allow them to get through the election. Well, after the election, they felt emboldened and started making absolutely ridiculous demands on all kinds of stuff to limit the presidential authorities, and we just wasn't going to do it. We said we're not doing it, and the pressure got high enough, not because they felt like they were in higher ground. It's because honestly, the airports and all their businesses and business travels around the country was being affected. And then you got to look at the GDP. The GDP dropped from 4% to 1% in the last 40 days for the shutdown. And so they caved, but there was only 8 of the 30 or the 13 that agreed to it. Either way, we passed the first step to move forward.
Look, you realize they got what they got. You guys offered them in the first week. We will have a vote on Obamacare.
Right. And isn't it funny, Brian? I saw your interview today with Jean Shaheen on Fox and Friends, and she was making this all about health care, saying that the Republicans are causing health care to go up. Republicans are the responsible for the high cost of health care. And you're going, wait a second. Affordable health care was Obamacare that you guys promised was going to go down. I mean, President Obama said himself that premiums are going to go down 25%. It's up 221%, and now you're trying to convince the American people that if they pass a premium tax, which is a taxpayer subsidy to the insurance companies, that your premiums are going to go down. No, the insurance companies have come out and said even with the premium tax passed, your premiums are still going to go up 11 to 12%. So you're going, okay, that makes no sense. They own this healthcare crisis because it's unaffordable, and they know it.
So the thing is, Senator, I hope I made it clear. that when it passed, the subsidies were always supposed to sunset. Joe Biden's program always supposed to sunset. I thought I made that clear to her. She goes, well, New Hampshire, the money was, it is going down in New Hampshire. Well, I don't know if that's true. But if it was going down across the country, you wouldn't have asked for the subsidies to be sustained.
That is absolutely correct, Brian. You're 100% correct. If they didn't, if the premiums are going down, they wouldn't ask for the extension that was supposed to sunset in 4 years. Remember, not one single Republican voted for this in 21. All Democrats, 100% of the Democrats are the ones that voted for this to pass this premium tax for COVID that was supposedly to help premiums stay low to sunset in 4 years. It was never supposed to be permanent, but now they're trying to spin it and say that the reason why the health care is so high is because it's the Republicans' fault, but yet they're the ones that created Obamacare.
Right, and nobody could say there's Republicans behind Obamacare, where you guys did have people cross over on the gun control legislation. That's not what this was, ever.
Absolutely not.
And that was before I think you even got to the Senate when they passed it. But
that's right.
But Senator, here's the big picture: is that when you look at that last election, whether you think it means a lot or a little, it means something about affordability. Maybe you guys should say, I inherited 5% inflation, I got it to 3%, my goal is 2%. Maybe that could be it. But the other thing that you guys care about, everybody cares about, is to make health care coverage affordable. So this is a period where you actually could close the doors, lower the shades, and try to work this out. Is there a fix to this that you have seen out there, or do you have to get do we have to go to a whole new piece of legislation?
You can't fix a blown motor. You have to rebuild it, and that's what Obamacare is right now. Affordable Health Care, ACA. It is a blown motor, and the president knows that. President Trump has said, "Listen, I want to make health care affordable for everybody. I want to make it work for everybody. Let people have choice. Let the market work." We have had a legislation out there. The problem is that it's not about policy to the Democrats. This whole shutdown was never about policy for the Democrats. This was about politics. That's why they kept saying over and over again, this is the only leverage they had. They quit talking about health care 3 weeks ago. It started into everything else other than health care because they knew health care was a losing fight because their health care that they were fighting for was to give illegals health care insurance back. So this was never about that. And the same thing with health care, the same thing with immigration. If we wanted to actually have a policy discussion and leave politics out of it, the Congress could fix immigration and we could fix health care. But you can't because the Democrats have no way to think policy only. It's always about politics. So they always make it that way. President Trump had a brilliant move 2 days ago when he put out the Truth Social post and said, hey, okay, you guys really want to do the subsidies, the premium tax? Instead of giving it to the healthcare industry, which the healthcare industry is doing just fine. They have made record profits, and I have no problem with them making profit. I'm a capitalist.
Right?
Insurance companies, yeah. I have no problem with the insurance companies making money. I want them to make money, but instead of making them even more money by giving them tax subsidies, which they don't need, give that money straight to the individual themselves. Let them go out and choose the health care they want to buy. How does the Democrats argue against that? That is a brilliant decision that President Trump is saying that he wants to do. So we have an option, but they don't want to give President Trump a win, Brian. That would mean that the Republicans now have saved health care. And that isn't what it's about. They're trying to change the blame game and put it on Republicans. I mean, that's obvious. That's all you're going to hear message speaking from the Democrats over the next 3 days.
And what people should know, we're talking to Senator Markwayne Mullin, is they broke from leadership. The leadership didn't say outwardly, like they did in March, go ahead, vote for this and put it over the 60 threshold. Have a continuing resolution. Now, this is going to be interesting because look what Chuck Schumer put out publicly. He says, America is in the midst of a Republican-made healthcare crisis, a crisis so severe, so urgent, so devastating for American families that I cannot support is continuing a resolution that fails to address it. I'm voting no. Excuse me? You're the leader. If you really felt upset that they broke with you, you would say, I could not help 6 Democrats from going against my leadership. My instructions were X, Y, and Z. But instead, he just talks about his vote. What does that tell you about what's happening on the other side?
Well, Chuck Schumer's weak. He's a failed leader. They know he's a failed leader. during this negotiation process, we were negotiating more with Hakeem Jeffries, and I really don't want to say negotiating. We wasn't really negotiating because we never gave them anything except a vote with no guarantee of an outcome. But during the discussions, Chuck Schumer was never involved. With the White House couldn't talk to Chuck Schumer. His own Senate Democrats couldn't talk to Chuck Schumer. We were actually dealing with Hakeem in the House because of that. Now, who led the negotiations was Tim Kaine and Jeanne Shaheen. And who actually broke the stalemate was Tim Kaine. And the reason why Tim Kaine from Virginia broke the stalemate, the stalemate was because he has 350,000 federal employees in his state, and they were literally starting to rally against him.
Yeah.
And so he knew he had to make a move. So the White House offered him to roll back the RIF, which is the employees that were laid off during the shutdown, just during the shutdown. That was it, not beyond the shutdown, but since October 1st, and would guarantee that they would have a job until January 30th, but not after that. And the reason why was Tim just wanted them to get their back pay. That was it, just get their back pay, but nothing past that. Well, so the president and the White House actually offered Tim that. And Tim jumped on it, it jumped on it very quick. I was going to make some statement, but I'll leave that alone. Yeah. And he jumped on it very quick, and that's what broke the logjam to bring over the other votes.
So Senator, now you have an opportunity to get the appropriations bills done. Can you get Can you go normal process, even though you're already overtime? Can you just work it through committee now, or are we going to end with an omnibus?
No, so we put on 3 appropriation bills, and all 3 appropriation bills, the mini bus that we did wasn't like we just took these 3 bills and put them on there. All 3 bills had already went through the House, the Senate, and they had been conferenced. And so we have actually 4 more done that way too. So the 3 appropriation bills that's on this CR, which is why we had to amend the CR. We just had to take off the 3 CRs, the continuing resolution, which were Biden policies, and replace them with Trump policies. They're important because one of them was ag. Ag hasn't been changed since 2018, and we actually lowered the dollar amount on 2018, and this also has SNAP programs. The military, MILCON, which are President Trump's priorities and Secretary Hegseth's priorities for the military, not Joe Biden's. So we had to put in there, and then we had LEDGE, which paid our federal employees here on Capitol Hill, including Capitol Police. All those are important. Those went through a conference. Those went through the House. Now, we have 4 more that we will probably do before January 30th. Those 4 have already also went through the conferences, or not through the conference. They already went through the committees, the appropriations, the Committee of Jurisdiction. Some of them, 2 of them will need a House vote. All 4 of them already have a 4 vote in the Senate. And we could possibly put those in January 30th, but that would put 7 of the 12 appropriation bills done, but that will fund 87% of the government.
Okay.
We will probably have to CR the rest of it. So the other ones, which will fund 13%, will probably be a rest of the full year CR, and that'll probably be what happens January 30th.
So a couple of things, too. We think about the SNAP and we think about the air travel. I got it. It's 2 biggest things. Also, I understand weapons not delivered to Ukraine, and that was paid for by NATO. More than $5 billion worth of U.S. weapons exports, because your armed services, to support NATO allies in Ukraine have been delayed by the government shutdown. It's actually harming, it's harming both sides. So including the Aram missiles, the Aegis combat system, the HIMARS that allies were buying and they were selling or giving to Ukraine. So this is a huge ripple, isn't it? Ripple effect.
It wasn't just like the defense industry was selling it straight to Ukraine. They were selling it to the UN. UN was buying it and giving it to Ukraine. But it was the Defense Department, or the Defense, the NATO. I mean, the Department of War was the one selling it. So it wasn't that it was. Well, the government was making money off of these sales, which is why part of the reasons why our GDP was at 4% and has dropped to 1%. That is a 3% drop in GDP will bankrupt most countries when this happens in 40 days. I mean, that's a huge, huge, huge drop. That's one that can have huge ripple effects that can run us right into recession. This is how dangerous this was becoming. If we would have stayed here any time longer, it would have become a national security risk that we were running on. And you could see the dollar deflate. The economy will come back pretty quick, but those dollars will never come back. Once you're 40 days out, it's not like you backspend 40 days of money. There'll be some influx, but it's not like next month we're going to have an 8% GDP. We're just going to probably have a 3% GDP, and it'll take a while for us to get to 4. So there was a lot of financial hit that we took because of these agreements we have, not just with NATO, but also with Australia, who is buying our submarines. We have aircraft that were being bought by our friends and allies all around the world, F-35s. That took a big hit. Right. You have air defense that we're the best in the world in air defense. All of our friends around the world are constantly buying our equipment, and it's a huge surplus for us.
Senator, lastly, when you talk about what's happening now overseas with the Middle East, we have the Syrian president visiting the White House for the first time ever. Your reaction, what are you going to ask? What do you think that the president should request from Syria? I know they're talking about being part of Abraham Accords. I want Russia out of that country. Can we push for that?
So I met with President al-Sharari in August in Damascus. I led the first official CODEL into Damascus. It was myself, Chairman Jason Smith from Missouri, Jimmy Panetta from California, Congressman, and Senator Joni Ernst. I led it in there. It was very quiet. We went in quietly, met with him. He's a former jihadist. This guy, I told him 15 years ago, him and I were more likely to be looking at each other through a barrel than we are sitting here shaking hands. But it's interesting because that's the area of the country. The guy's very charismatic. I had a very straightforward conversation with him. He speaks English. He broken English, but he speaks and understands English a lot better, and he speaks it. I understand a little bit of Arabic, and I don't speak it at all, so we could communicate well. Right. I also had dinner with him last night, myself and Senator Joni Ernst. And the president's met with him before. This guy wants to normalize relationships with Israel. He understands the importance of ties with the United States. Last night we talked about that. Last night he said we want to have relationships with the United States. He said Damascus is the oldest civilization in the world. Syria is a very diverse religious group because he is used to be an extremist, and I wish I had time to actually talk about his conversation because it was very intriguing to me about his transformation. But he recognized that there's Christians, there's Kurds, there's Druze, there's all these religions that he's got to come together. And I think the president sees that. And what we're going to say is we need assurance that you're going to represent all of Syria. Gotcha. Not just one religious group. I just would love to kick Russia. And once we get that, then we can move forward.
All right. Senator Markwayne Mullin doing a lot of great work in a very difficult area of Syria. Senator, thanks so much. I'll talk to you again soon. Best of luck getting the government open.
All right. Thanks.
I am not a politician. I'm first a husband, a father, and a businessman. I never graduated college. I've been on unemployment. I've been on food stamps. But I still managed to run several big companies. One, I built from scratch to 500 locations, over $1 billion in revenue, and I created 15,000 jobs. So I know how to figure it out. I grew up here, my wife grew up here. Maine's just not what it used to be.
So that is the voice of Ben Midgley. He has got a brand new tape that really tells this whole story, and he is running for governor of Maine. That's a place Republicans don't have a lot of success outside Susan Collins, who drives a lot of Republicans crazy because she's moderate and has to stay away from things that would be a turnoff to Mainers who might think that if you're too conservative, you're probably not going to get elected. That's just the way it is. Ben has had a lot of success in business. You've seen him on the air, especially during the pandemic. He's all over the Business Channel. We were trying together to get health clubs open. Why? Because Ben, who had served previously as the CEO, the president of Planet Fitness, is one of the founding partners of Crunch Fitness. And if you've seen a Crunch, they're fantastic. Planet Fitnesses are everywhere. So, Ben, you've had a lot of success. Why would you try to go into politics when you had all this business success? You could be enjoying your life, kicking back.
Yeah, first, thanks very much for having me, Brian. And it's great to see you again. And, just to give you all the credit in the world, you were the primary voice in the media trying to get health clubs open. And that was a big deal back then. So I just want to thank you again publicly on that.
I was being selfish. I was dying to work out. I could not believe they shut us down.
No, it was the
and
wrong
I had to
thing.
crunch down my block so I had to get a chance to know you. And then you came out, which was not easy, right?
No,
because you got
that was hard.
blowback when you came out saying we need to work out.
Oh, yeah. Like it was an irresponsible thing to do when it was the best thing for
Is
people
that
to
part
do.
of your motivation for getting in?
Well, my motivation for getting in is I'm from Maine. I grew up in Maine. My wife's from Maine. Our three kids grew up in this state, and it's really an incredible place. And, it built our character, it built our kids' character, and really, without going on too long, over the last 7 years, I've watched the decline of the state from what it used to be. It used to be a tremendous place, and now we've got 30% of the state on welfare. Businesses are running from the state. We're in the top 10 of drug overdoses and drug deaths in the country. We actually lost our nephew to a drug overdose. These things that are happening in Maine, we have the highest electricity increases in the country. They're all policy-based decisions. So now that I'm no longer with the business, in a good place in my life, the kids are old enough that they understand the motivation to jump into this, that we decided now was the best time to get in and try to make a difference.
You think you can?
I do.
How?
I do. I think,
Number one, with the welfare, for example. There's too many people on that. Obviously, that number's horrendous.
Yeah, the 5 areas I think we're focusing on, and there's about 22, 23 issues that are wrong in the state right now, like a lot of, I think Democrat-run states, but it's the economy, the cost of living in the state, which has gone up dramatically, and Maine's one of the lowest income states in the country. We're also one of the highest tax burden states, so it's really not a good mix for the folks that live there. Opportunity is leaving the state because we're not business friendly, so it's very hard to get businesses in the state, and we've got a lot of businesses that are leaving the state, for lower tax states. New Hampshire, for example, is right next door. Support of law enforcement. We're going to defend the police, not defund the police. We have to get back behind those folks. And then fix education. We made this switch to social emotional learning about 6 or 7 years ago, and our kids.
Is that what it's called, or is that what you label it?
No, that's what it is. They made the point to say, the Commissioner of Education, that academics is going to take a back seat to social emotional learning. And it's been terrible. We've had massive investment. The schools have dropped to the lowest in the country, really the lowest test scores we've ever had in the history of the state of Maine. And we still have one in high school. And for parents right now to understand what their kids are learning and making sure they're rationalizing what's happening, keeping the politics out of the schools is very hard. And you need to get that back in place so kids have a much better chance to have a good career, whether they go into the trades or some other opportunity, and then stay in the state. So we've got a lot of areas we need to fix.
So who do you look at in politics and think that's the type of politician I want to be? Anybody that served, even if you don't know them, is there a prototypical person, whether it's Joe Manchin, who stood up as a Democrat in a conservative state? Now, if you're somebody who's a Republican in a state that's not used to electing Republicans outside Susan Collins, how do you keep true to your school at the same time reflect the people of Maine?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, the state in Maine is there's 40,000 more registered Democrats than there are Republicans. And then the next biggest voting bloc are independents. They're almost tied with Republicans. So you've got a lot of folks in the middle there. I still believe that the majority of people are somewhere in the middle, a little tired of all the fighting on the political level. In terms of, politicians I've admired over the years, obviously you got a picture of Abe Lincoln right there, go back really far. Yeah. Modern day, of course, I support the president. And, Chris Sununu was a great governor next to us in New Hampshire. I think for Maine, people just want someone who's balanced and focused on, getting the job done and getting things back to where it needs to be for Maine. And that's what the real thing is for me. There's a purpose and then a cause to this. There's no personal ambition. There's no, this side needs to win over that side. We just need to get things set right for the people of Maine.
So what did you learn in business that can apply? Do you see a businessman now as president? You see how he's approaching things. What if success leaves clues? Well, how could you implement what you know in business?
The thing that's helped make me most successful in business was taking the time to listen to everybody. It takes a lot more time to do it that way, but it's not about beating the other side. For example, in a franchise organization, you have the franchisor on top. You could tell all the franchisees what to do, but then the franchisees can create a franchise association. They can all get together. They can push back at you. You can have lawsuits. It can go on for years and years and years. So the more you get to the point of truly understanding what everybody needs and then finding the best outcome that's going to be fair here, fair there, but overall best for the overall business, same in politics, what's best for the overall people of the state of Maine. I think as long as you put the time in, then you'll get the credibility for, being concerned about everyone's opinions. Obviously, you have to make the right decision for the people of Maine, but as the overall goal for me is, do right, do good for as many people as you possibly can.
Understood. So you've had two very successful, your run up to Planet Fitness. How did you get all the way to the top?
Well, actually, I was recruited in to be the president of Planet Fitness. And then I left there after a few years and partnered with some very good friends of mine, tremendous, mentors of mine. Their names are Mark Masteroff and Jim Rowley, and got involved with Crunch and became initially the president of a franchise company that didn't have anything. We didn't have any clubs, any franchisees, and then was promoted to CEO. And, our original pitch was, well, listen, Crunch just came out of bankruptcy. We don't have any clubs, and it's going to cost you $2 million to build a gym. Do you want to take a chance on us? And, people took a chance because of the team that was behind it. And then year over year, we gained more momentum, ended up selling 1,500 franchises, and became the number one franchise in the country 2 years in a row now. And we've got a great president that took my place as I left. The team's fantastic, and I think Crunch is going to have a great run.
So, in other words, it was a lot of risk, it was a lot of work, and there were no guarantees of success.
None at all. So, kind of like this, right?
Yeah.
From a political standpoint.
So what do you think to people who think that life is tough and these kids don't have opportunities today and all those things? Where does grit come in? Where does luck come in? And do you think it's harder for a young person today than it is when 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago?
I love that question. Yeah. So for myself, I tried to make it through college. I tried my best. My parents sent me off with $500. I was working 3 jobs to try to make it through. And after a couple of years, I just couldn't afford it.
Where were you?
I went out to Santa Barbara, California, and Santa Barbara City College. And then after a couple of years, I just continued to work. And I think, I don't know if it said in the beginning of the video, but one of those jobs I had was cleaning machines in a gym in exchange for a membership. And that's how I got in the industries, from the very bottom. And I just tried to keep working myself up. Ran into some tough times. I ended up on unemployment. I ended up on food stamps. And that was back in the day when food stamps were these brightly colored tickets. You'd have to tear them off in the grocery store aisle and present them. It was very humbling. And I knew I didn't want to be there, and hard work was going to be the only way out. So you just dig in.
Were you in California?
I was in Maine at that time. Yeah. And, I wanted to stay in the fitness industry because I had been in the industry for 6-7 years. And there wasn't a lot of opportunity in Maine at that time in the fitness industry. So I did everything I could. I mowed lawns. I packed sea urchins, until I could get back in the industry, and got back in. And over 30 years, ended up, just kind of learning from as many people as I could, reading as much as I could, making mistakes, getting back up, trying it again. And then fortunately got a lot of momentum. But I think for these younger kids, whether you're a college graduate or not, whether you go to the trades or you just try to pursue something on your own, as long as you keep going, you're probably going to be fine. And that's the message I think we need to get out there. And then government needs to stay out of the way and just support people's opportunities.
Do you think people have to run on capitalism again?
Oh, okay.
Do you think we have to have politicians decide where they stand on capitalism when that's usually a given if you're in the American?
Yeah, I mean, based on
the mayor of New York City, the one who almost won in Minneapolis, the one that may win yet in Seattle?
Yeah, based on what I've seen, similar to what you've seen, is it's really sad that a lot of folks think that socialism or some form of socialism might be the answer. And it just means they don't have the opportunities that they need, right, that they want. And the government is not there to help them get those opportunities. It's better to make people dependent on the system than give them the opportunity to do better for themselves and their family. And that's where we need to go.
I hear. So here's the guy that won with this message, Zohran Mamdani. Listen.
The conventional wisdom would tell you that I am far from the perfect candidate. I am young, despite my best efforts to grow older. I am Muslim. I am a democratic socialist. And most damning of all, I refuse to apologize for any of this.
Okay, that's a pretty defiant speech, number one. Number two is the socialists feel as though that group, the DSA, feels they have the wind at their back. Is that some of the people you're running against? Do you expect to run against in the general?
Well, I think in Maine, sure, you definitely have that. And in some respects, Maine is trying to be the most progressive place of all. I don't know if it's because we're a small state and we don't get that much attention, but a lot of the policies that are in place now, it seems like Maine's trying to rival California and Oregon. But I think there's enough pain in the state right now. There's enough frustration. It's fairly obvious, like I said, when you have 30% of the state that is on state health care, and they want to try to make it universal health care in the state, which would just sink the state from a financial standpoint. I think you're going to get calmer minds prevailing when we get to the election next year.
So this DSA, if you find anybody running under this banner who wins, the DSA is now pushing right away Mamdani demanding for the incoming mayor to end all city contracts and companies doing business with Israel, withdraw all funds from banks lending money to the Jewish state. Then they are demanding that in a 5-page screed. This DSA New York City chapter is doing that. They're unabashedly pro-Palestine. Israel hating Mandami fully supports its anti-Israel agenda once he is sworn in as mayor in January. So that's the pressure he's gonna be under. But he's even talked about doing it. Does it worry you, or you just think, those New Yorkers are crazy?
I think there's undertones of worry, but I think that's really more prominent in the bigger cities. Right? I think once you get more out into the suburban parts of the country, that you've certainly got a more conservative approach, a more balanced approach, and some of this doesn't make sense to those people.
Your previous governor, sparred with President Trump.
Still does.
Yeah, still does. Over men and women's sports, or men and women's locker rooms. First off, where do you stand?
I don't support that.
The trans?
Yeah, no, I support girls, without question.
And what about your gyms?
The gyms? Well, I mean, the
gyms,
the gyms follow state law wherever you have to. Certain states require any business to allow someone to go into a locker room of their choice or bathroom of their choice, but that's just state law.
So
I'm not associated with the company anymore, too, so I don't want to speak on behalf of them.
But I want you to hear this confrontation that happened in a Gold's Gym that's getting a lot of attention.
Men, grown men with big dicks in the women's locker room. And that's why I'm getting kicked out. And I want to make sure the girls know. Everybody saw that man in the locker room.
So it gets worse from there. You're nodding your head. I mean, this is...
Seen it before. Yeah.
Your reaction. Are you going to take a strong stand against the sitting governor right now?
Well,
on that issue?
Should we win, I mean, we obviously support girls, right? It's not just a safety issue, it's a fairness issue, it's the intent of Title IX. So I would certainly sign into a law, protections for women in women's sports.
So right now you have, and by the way, we're talking to Ben Midgley, who's running for governor of Maine. And Ben, you have others. You have Robert Wessel, you have Robert Charles, you have David Jones, James Libby, Owen McCarthy, Jonathan Bush. Your thoughts about your competition?
Yeah, I think, first of all, everyone in the race is a good person. I'm never going to be the type of person that's going to take shots on anybody. We're in a very good position. If the state ends up with a Republican governor one way or another, the state's going to be better off. So if it ends up not to be me, which we're highly hopeful it will be, and we think it will be, the state's going to be better off regardless of whatever Republican's in office. That being said, my dad always taught me in sports, you play your own game, you execute your own strategy, and you make other folks react to you. So that's what we're doing.
And what sport was that, basketball?
Basketball, football, little mixed martial arts, all that stuff.
You got it all. Yeah. So a couple other things. Just like Elise Stefanik, who I interviewed, and Bruce Blakeman, who I'm going to be running for governor, I think both, in New York. They're tight with Trump. But that might not necessarily work. It didn't work. Doesn't help you in Virginia. They waited till last week for Glenn Youngkin to get an endorsement. Doesn't really help in New Jersey. What's your view of the president, and what role would you like to see him play in your race?
I support the president, without question. The challenge we have in Maine is, and I think you mentioned it earlier, is the current governor and the attorney general. They've sued the administration 25 times with taxpayer money. That's not the way to go about it. When you're governor, I mean, your primary goal is to take care of the folks in Maine. So if for some reason something comes up that the administration has set out there that doesn't work well for the people of Maine, you're going to be in a far better position as a Republican governor to go sit down and talk about it and try and get to the outcome of that. So we're going to try to end all that drama, partner with the administration as best we can. But obviously, as governor, you have to make sure whatever's happening is best for the folks in your state.
And lastly, Ben, what's your family's reaction? It was hard enough because you were only working 1,000 hours. What's your family's reaction to being out there knowing there's going to mean criticism of you?
Yeah, that's already happened. But I'll tell you, once you go from the private sector to politics, once you at least my personal experience, once you rip off the Band-Aid and you're out there, then all that anxiety and that concern goes away, at least for me personally, because there's a real purpose and a real cause to this. Like I said, this is not for me to extend my career. This is not for, for any ego.
You look at it as service.
Yeah, you've got to go. And that was my dad. My dad was, he's a military vet. He spent his whole life taking care of veterans. And by the way, happy early Veterans Day to all of our veterans tomorrow. Right. I mean, without them, we wouldn't be anywhere. And he spent his life, taking care of vets. He was the American Legionnaire of the Year for the state of Maine, and I think that instilled in our whole family the desire for public service. So they're all on board. They're actually pretty excited, and in some cases, I got to stop them from getting so fired up.
All right, good. So if people want to support you in your run for governor, where do they go?
benforgovernor.com.
Very
Thanks for
simple.
asking.
Ben, congratulations on all your success. Best of luck the rest of the way.
Thanks, Brian.
And I know one thing, you will not be outworked.
No way. No way. Thank you.
Hey, we are back, and let's talk a little education. Over the weekend, 60 Minutes did a big feature on higher education, their battles with the Trump administration. I thought it was a pretty fair job. They had Steven Pinker on, who tends to be a conservative professor, and the biggest criticism was in order to get their attention, the Department of Education is focused on a lot of the money that goes into research and development, whether it's some worthy cause or whether it's attacking some disease. But it was the only thing that could have got their attention. All the money that's flowing to these Ivy League educators who have no sense of balancing out their education, of have a conservative on your faculty, have a few of them, don't condemn people. Why are kids afraid to put their hand up in the air and say something that might be pro-Trump in a classroom at Harvard or Columbia or Stanford? So the president saw the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel protests, the pro-Palestinian protests, a lot of them by green card holders or on student visas. And he said, we're going to get a hold of this. Biden didn't care about it. I care about it. So that was the give and take of that piece. And I thought it really set things up right. And in a much fairer way than I thought 60 Minutes would do. But there's one group, one college that's never going to have a problem with that. You're never going to see protests on those campuses or a push to be more balanced because they were created to be balanced and they've been effective. It's the University of Austin in Texas. It's abbreviated, as you know, interestingly in a way. You've seen it all around. It's in the upper floors of a building. It's not a sprawling campus yet, but it's on its way. Their president joins us now, Dr. Carlos Carvalho, president of the University of Austin. Dr. Carvalho, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I was lucky enough to see you guys in action, see how impressive your layout is. Tell everyone what makes the University of Austin unique.
So we are unique because, number one, we are a committed American institution. So being proud of America and celebrating what we are and our tradition as the pinnacle of Western civilization is something that is in our DNA. We take that as a starting point for our education, and so that all of our students have to be, understanding and educated on the path that got us to this point, right? So that's actually, we see that as a fundamental component of building a modern citizen. Mm-hmm. And of course, that has to go through a lot of debate and understanding of difficult ideas, difficult moments in our history, being very open about those things. But fundamentally, building citizens that are proud and are happy to move this country forward.
And now you're in your second year, right?
That's correct. We're in our second year.
Thanks to an incredible donation from, I think, Jeff. Yes, you now are going to be you're going to be tuition free forever.
That's correct. We are making a commitment of never charging tuition and never to accept government money. So, as you were pointing out in your introduction, the government money is something that comes with strings, and oftentimes we might agree with what's happening right now potentially, but governments change, and for over many years, government have had a very negative influence in higher ed. And I think we want to make sure that we develop our university without those strings. But on the free tuition side, also we're saying that we're making an investment on American dynamism. We don't want our generation of young folks coming out of college burdened by debt. We want to make sure that we allow them to be innovators, we allow them to be taking risks, start families early, et cetera, without that burden. And I think this is an investment on Americans' future that Jeff kickstarted, and we're gonna continue to uphold.
So let me see. The University of Texas, University of Austin in Texas, 0, with quality professors who always focused on what the career is going to be. What are you doing? How are you going to make that work in the real world? As opposed to, I think NYU is over $100,000 a year. And to live in New York City, and then you got, if you factor in tuition, room, and board. So how do you compare both educations?
So remember, by us making us free, we're making a promise, we're making an equity investment with our students. We hope that they will accrue a lot of value from this education, and when they succeed in the future, they pay it forward to the next generation of University of Austin students. So we are making a decision that aligns our incentives. So every dollar I spend, every decision I make has to be in the interest of advancing their education, making them ready to the workforce, making them ready to be productive citizens. No other college can claim that. So, you know that everything we do is going to be to the benefit of the students, not just to make them feel nice or to make them, but really to, make sure that they will be successful as they get out of here.
And you point out you expect a lot of them. And because a lot of the great innovators, a lot of our founding fathers were very young when they decided to start a country. And you talk about some of the great inventions happen with young men and women in their 20s.
That's right. One of the things that I have to fight in my language is that I hate to call students kids. And we call them kids a lot these days in universities. And yeah, you pointed to founding fathers. I was thinking earlier about Henry Knox, which was a general at age 25 and, fighting with George Washington, amazing battles during the Revolutionary War.
What he brought from Fort Ticonderoga
that's right.
when they needed cannons in the siege of Boston. And he did it.
And he did it. And he was 25 years old. And his education was just by reading a lot of books. It was somebody that actually spent a lot of time reading the important things of human history and got him ready to be that kind of a leader at that age, already at that age. So I think we can do better with our youth. And I think that's what we're trying to do here. So to give you an example of this, we are also very tough on them. We want to make sure that they are working really hard in their time here. I'm giving them this privilege, right, of a free tuition, but that comes with the responsibility of having to work really hard. Our students work 40 to 50 hours a week. A typical American student right now works between 20 to 25 hours a week. And you saw the Harvard study that came out last week about great inflation and students don't show up to class. It's an old socialist thing where what was the old communist thing? Like we pretend they're working, and I can't remember the quote exactly. But the point with this, that universities pretend they're teaching and the students pretend they're learning. Not here at the University of Austin. They have to come to class. They have to do a lot of work. We keep them to the task. We're trying to build what we call the Navy SEALs of the mind. And there's only one way to be a Navy SEAL, is to work really hard at it.
And you're always trying to invent something that can get a patent. And you just saw an idea of what people have done and what age they've done it. And that's what your goal is. Meriwether Lewis, as he crosses the country for the first time, was 30 years old. Right. Sam Colt patented the revolver at 22. Palmer Luckey sold Oculus at 21. Patrick Colson founded Stripe at 22. Michael Dell, his computer business at 19. Fred Smith founded FedEx at 29. This is the type of things you tell your students. Don't tell me you're going to wait to mature. You come up with an idea in this class.
That's right. And we have already examples of this. We have a student that already had sold this company after the first year and is still here with us, not taking as many classes anymore because he's running now this big business that he sold for a lot of money. And that's something that started, after getting here. We have some students that are now leaving to go work for Peter Thiel after 1 year. They met him here and is going to be sort of spending time with them.
Is he one of your founders?
California. He's a supporter of the university. He has been in the early days supporting us, and has been here last year giving a series of lectures. And that's why I think where he met our students and saw the potential that's in place. But the point being is that we celebrate that. We celebrate our students taking risks and trying to go out in the real world and build new things. So we want to encourage builders out of this place.
So is it wrong to say to ask this question? What majors do you offer?
So say that again. Sorry.
Do you offer different majors, or does everyone that goes through the curriculum get the same thing?
So they have a core curriculum in the first year that's common to everybody. And that's a very strong education on our Western tradition, right? So from the Greeks, so you see the pictures behind here in my wall is a motivation of that. So from Greek from Athens to Jerusalem to Rome, to the Enlightenment in Glasgow, and through Philadelphia, through the American founding. History, philosophy, and literature across that is something that we expose our students. All of our students, no matter where they come from, they have to have a very good grasp of that. We believe that's a very important setting them to success by understanding our tradition and not being people that reject the greatest of America in particular. So that's the first part. And then the second part, they can specialize more on things like the humanities, more on economics and politics, or more on computer science and mathematics.
Well, so you only have sophomores, right? They're going to move up, yes. And you just keep moving up. So how many students can you accept? How many applications do you get?
So we get hundreds and hundreds of applications, and it's growing as we speak. I think moments like last week, this announcement is just getting us, a huge kick up in demand for what we have here. We're trying to be very objective and meritocratic in our admissions. So we only look at objective measures of merit. We don't look at essays. We don't look at any kind of demographic information.
You just want GPAs?
Nothing.
And SATs?
GPAs, SATs, and APs. That's it. We believe that's the most meritocratic and the most moral admissions process in America. I think we've seen what universities have done by looking at trying to do a lot of social engineering in their classes. We reject that completely.
So you're not saying I need some Hispanics, I need some women.
No,
that doesn't
those
matter.
things don't even submit that information. We don't know their names when they're applying. We want to know their objective measures of merit, and that's it. And let the chips fall where they land. We want the best. We want the best in order to educate the best, in order to get them out of here and really do great things.
I forgot what floor it's on, but you're the floor of an older building. Describe what the college is, what it consists of right now.
So we have 2 floors now of an older building. We double it since you've been here. And it's an incredibly warm environment, a very intimate environment where students spend a lot of time working together in the classroom and out of the classroom. But we are making a conscious decision not to have a sprawling campus because we don't want to waste money on things that are not to the education of the students. We're purposely maintaining a very lean operation where we focus on the content in the classrooms, the experience they will have, and it's very nice because we happen to be in an amazing town that's growing a lot. Austin is a very dynamic place, and being downtown offers a lot of extra opportunities to our students as well.
Do you ever see a time when you'll have a campus with buildings and grass and a common area, lunchroom, and
I think it all depends on our progression. I think I have to be realistic. You asked about numbers. Our first phase of growth here, I want to get to 500 students between freshman and senior. That's the first phase. And I think once we show that we can do this amazing job and our goal is very ambitious. We want to be the best undergraduate institution in America, period. It's not something.
How would that be judged? How would you judge that?
Success of our students. I think the students, and again, I'm on the hook for it. If they don't succeed, this college will cease to exist. That's what free tuition does, and no government money does, right? Nobody's subsidizing us. It's going to be the success of our students is the only path for our success. And I think we're going to be able to show that. So in some ways, that requires us to be very, I think, very, very small on purpose at this stage. I'm not trying to build the Navy. I'm trying to build the Navy SEALs. And that's small because I need this really, really strong group of people coming in, and I need to really focus on delivering the best possible education and opportunities for them coming out of here.
So when people say, I don't need college, I don't think you need college, I always push back on that personally, because even the classes I had, the core classes, I benefited from. You take a philosophy class. I knew I wasn't going to benefit. I was never going to give a speech on Socrates, but it just broadens you out to things that you just become more knowledgeable, more interesting. And I can still remember almost 90% of my classes and what I learned in there. I mean, I didn't want to do marketing, but I had to take a marketing class. How did that did nothing but help you? Do you see merit in those type of things?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why we have a very broad core curriculum that we say to everybody they have to take. I mean, economics is part of it, some mathematics is part of it, some computer science is part of it. So no matter what you're going to be in your life, you need some exposure to a lot of the pieces that makes the modern world possible. If you don't get an exposure to those things, you become very narrow. And I think you don't become adaptable to the next set of challenges you're going to face in life. I think that the humanistic education that we offer, I think, opens the mind of our students to be really, adaptable to the world. And the world changes very fast, right? But there's some grounding that's very important that comes from a tradition that, can be exposed through literature, through philosophy, through history, but also through technical things like mathematics and computer science and so on.
And by the way, just so you know, what I witnessed there and what you guys always say, you cannot go into the University of Austin classroom and not speak. You guys have to participate in those classrooms. And that's the type of student you need too, right?
That's right. I mean, we were founded with this motto of a fearless pursuit of truth. And that was, again, in 2021, it was a clear time where universities were canceling people left and right, were rejecting certain kinds of ideas left and right? And the first drive of our existence was about to say out loud, a place where you have the freedom to speak openly and debate ideas is a necessary condition for one to become educated. So that's still part of our focus, and everywhere on our campus, these are people, they're free thinkers, people that are willing to engage with ideas, of course, respectfully, within bounds of what's reasonable and acceptable, right? But it's an environment that welcomes and demands a lot of independent thinking from you.
Dr. Carlos Carvalho, the president of the University of Austin, with the big announcement that if you get in, it is tuition free. and the quality, it goes, I challenge anybody to go into any of your classrooms and think these kids are skating by. They're fully taxed, and they're really pushed to be successful with an eye on what you're going to do when you graduate. The whole point is everyone should forget about it. They forget about that, colleges. We want to get you through 4 years, get your degree, but what happens next? And I think it's a real challenge today as much as ever, but you guys are ready for the task. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it, Carlos.
Thank you for the opportunity. We're making partners for life with our students. So thanks for the opportunity for being here.